guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is actually part of Altenews watercolor therapy blog hop. I'm going to be using the Forever and a Day stamps and dies, the Climbing Clematis stamps and dies, and then the Reason to Smile sentiment set, which I totally love. Well, I love all of them, but I really love the sentiments. Altenew, I don't know who has them, like who makes their sentiments or who comes up with them, but they're amazing. So today we're going to be doing some no-line watercoloring, and we're going to be doing it with layer stamps. This is such an easy way to do this. When you're picking out the layer you want to start with, I find that I have the best luck with the middle layer because it's enough structure to give you a guideline of where to put your watercolor, but it's not so much structure that it's just like, well, so much stamp that it's just a big blob. So you can stamp in any light color ink. The lightest Altenew ink I own is actually rose quartz. And even though it's pink, you'll see like by the end of it, you can't see it by the time we paint over the, like the green and the brown. The flowers are probably not a good indication because I decided to paint them pink, but you could certainly do another color and cover that up probably without really any problem. Because you would think like with the brown or the green, especially the green, that the green and the pink would be like hideous together, but honestly, it's not even noticeable. So I am stamping on watercolor paper. It's hard to get a good impression on watercolor paper, so I did end up stamping this twice. So it's not even as light as it could have been. Like I double stamped it and still painted over it, and you can't see it. So honestly, like any light color ink, you're probably solid. So I picked the smallest branch to stamp because I wanted it to all fit on my card. The largest branch in the set is a little bit too big for an A2 size card. It depends on what look you're going for. Like if you wanted it to hang over, totally go with that one, but I really think it's made more for like a scrapbooker. Here, this is their 36 pan watercolors. I love them. I think that they're beautiful. I probably don't use them often enough. So I tried not to zoom in so much that you couldn't see the palette because I think it's helpful to see the colors that people are using. But I did mix my colors in the center section instead of on the lid. The lid folds flat so that it can also be like a mixing palette, but I wanted you to be able to see them. So I am using the water brush that is included in the 36 pan water set. I actually typically prefer to use a paintbrush, so I really use their water brush like a paintbrush. I don't typically like squeeze it to get the water out. I just don't feel like it gives me great control, and it's not their water brush, it's all water brushes. So I'm trying to get better about it. Like especially when I'm mixing the colors, like getting more comfortable for how hard I need to push to get the amount of water that I want. But so, you know, practice makes perfect. Nothing's perfect. I'm kidding. Practice makes you better. So here I just mixed up basically some very watered down brown, and then I'm painting that over, and now I'm going to let it get a little bit thicker, and I'm going to go back over those same lines. Eventually I am going to speed this up because, you know, watercolor is a process. It does take some time. And we don't have whatever the hour and a half it took me. Well, it wasn't. It was like an hour and 12 minutes, but then, you know, part of that I wasn't actually doing anything. It was just footage where I was talking or, you know, whatever in the background, because I can never just be doing one thing in my life. Except for voiceovers. When I do voiceovers, I'm doing one thing. It's pretty much the only time. So like I said, just, you know, adding some thicker pigment there. Their watercolors they can be used very thick, so they're more opaque. And I love them. I think that they're super great, especially for no-line watercoloring if you want bold color. So if you haven't checked them out, please do. Like I said, this is part of a blog hop, so let's just touch on that. They're giving away some gift certificates to commenters. So if you have not hopped along, the link will be below. They also have a couple of sales going on right now. One of them is the watercolor bundle for their classes, which is 40% off. So if you've would like to learn more about watercolor, they always have super talented people teaching their classes. I know my girlfriend Emily Midget did one, and I'm not sure if hers is included in that bundle, but she's an amazing watercolorist. And then the other deal they have going on is they have 20% off their alcohol markers. So if you've been thinking that you wanted to try alcohol markers and maybe Copics are outside of your price point, Altenew markers are more affordable and they are really good. They have a brush nib, which seems to be kind of the hang up for a lot of alcohol marker manufacturers, is that they choose not to do the brush nib. They'll do a bullet and a chisel, and the brush nib's really where it's at, y'all. So at this point, we've sped up the process. I'm pretty much going to be doing the same thing for all of them, which is going in with my lightest color, dropping in some darker pigments, and then, just kind of playing around with watercolor. You've watched my videos before. You've heard me say this. You don't want to work next to two areas. They will bleed into each other. The pigment will run wherever the paper is wet. So just something to keep in mind when you're doing the petals. Also, a little tip, I like to leave my stamp set like to the left of where I'm painting so that I can look over at it in case I have any question about where a petal starts and ends. So that's just something that, you can do, or you could stamp them out to see where those, the lines are. Since I double stamped it, I didn't really have too many issues with this one of seeing where the lines are, but I'm sure it's kind of difficult to tell on camera. As far as life goes, today we are going to be talking about homeschooling. We're going to be talking about homeschooling and just if you are having a good homeschooling experience, I want to know. I want to know if you are having a good homeschooling experience. Peanut is in first grade, mind you, so I don't feel like homework should be that hard. I mean, I know it was a long time ago that I was in first grade, but I feel like most of the information that they're learning is probably general knowledge at this juncture. Until I sit down to do his homework with him. And then both of us sometimes want to cry. Home e-learning, the whole e-learning process is just not for this girl. There's a reason why I did not go to school for early childhood education. And the reason that I did not is because it is not my forte. This is not where God gave me my strengths. I like very concise instructions, and those seem to be lacking from his educator. And she's a very nice lady, and she is at home. I like all the grace in the world. She's at home. Her husband is an essential worker. She's raising her own children. I totally get it. And I'm sure she's under a ton of pressure from the school board to fulfill XYZ requirements. But I am also working 40 hours a week and running a household. And so is Eric, and doing childcare and then adding in the education on top of it. And mama's tired. Okay, that's just what it comes down to. This mama is tired. So when we have a Google Meet at 9 a.m. and school normally starts at 9 a.m., y'all, we ain't going to be there. We're not going to be there. I'm not, we've kept him on a fairly consistent schedule of getting up at 8:30 in the morning. And by the time he wakes up, eats breakfast, gets ready for the day or whatever, 9:15 is pushing it. And there are so many things going on in the world to stress out about that I'm not going to stress out about the Google Meet. I'm sorry. I don't care. It's just does not even register on my radar of things that are of importance. Now, I do think that it's important for him to interact with his classmates and to see his teachers. And Ohio has now canceled the entire rest of the school year. We're not going back. Come on, May 21st. Ooh, Lord Jesus. Come on, May 21st. So I sent her an email and I let her know we are both essential workers. That is so early in the morning to expect anybody to be functioning at any level of efficiency. I did not word it that way. I just let her know it wasn't going to work for us. And while I understand that it may work for her and it may work for other parents, it would not work for us, and we will not be there. which she was awesome about. And she was like, I can totally do some in the afternoon, like willing to work with you guys. So then I'm guessing she must have talked to more parents because now all of our Google Meets are in the afternoon. But they're at 2:30. I get up, this is so funny. I get up work at 2. Eric and I are ships passing in the driveway. We've talked about this, like tag you're it, WWE style. And so I get home at 2:15. He is walking out the door as I am walking in the door. And then in 15 minutes, I have to have him logged on, all of that for the Google Meet. Now, that is not her fault. There's no way for her to know that that's the exact time that I get home from work. But I digress. I'm not going to ask her to change it again. Well, I wasn't even really, I guess technically I was asking her to change it to begin with, but I was really just letting her know, like, PPS, we're not going to be there. And then even today, when we had the Google Meet, when we logged on, there was only 3 people who showed up. And so she was like, well, we'll just reschedule it because they were supposed to share their poetry journals. My first grader is learning poetry. Poetry. So this is a struggle. The instructions were to keep a poetry journal, to define the words that they were given. Each word, like, it was a different each day. Wait, I have to go back to the card. So at this point, the watercoloring is completed except for the 2 extra buds. And I make this mistake with this branch die every time I use it. I cannot remember for the life of me that it is not an open die. So, FYI, cut your branches before you stamp them. Just do it. Make your life easier. I was able to line my up with a little bit of wiggling, but it would have been much easier if I had just die cut them, and then stamped them. For these little buds here, they go together for the die, and I just basically stamped the stem of one and the buds on the other, and then I die cut them both out, and now I'm just going to go back in and fill in those blank spaces, which is also always an option with die cuts. You could just paint directly on them without doing any sort of stamping. So, anywho, those are the instructions to find these words. And then he has to watch these videos on, like, onomatopoeia, and he had to watch a video on alliteration. Don't mind my quarantine hair busting in on this scene. Total, like, photobomber of my crazy top knot quarantine hair. But it was very, very late, and I was trying to knock this card out. And also, I pretty much just only wear my hair in a top knot now, FYI. Like, I feel like we should not be judging each other for what we look like, because I'm also walking around with absolutely no makeup on. For the background of this card, I just did a super quick wash of a couple of teals more toward the bottom of the card. I thought that's where my focal point was going to be. Turns out, no, I ended up flipping it around, but you'll see that when we get there. So, those are the instructions. We watch the videos that are given for the day, and then we are to define onomatopoeia and stanza. Do you know where to find the definition for stanza in poetry? Because I don't either. It wasn't included in any of the videos at all. Just wasn't even mentioned. So eventually I Google it just so we can end I can't even say it. So we can end the painful experience that is homework time for me and for him. Most of the time, honestly, it ends up with him saying he doesn't like homework and me saying me either. He also had a hard time understanding poetry. But anyway, so I Google the stanza, we write down the definition, and then we move on to the next thing. The next thing is a poem in which we read. And then there's an area, like, you read the whole poem through one time, and then after each stanza, which, by the way, is a paragraph in poetry, you have to stop and then answer this question. So we read the first stanza, which says, springtime, I'm just summarizing here. Springtime flowers smell so sweet like cinnamon toast. Then the question is, what are the similes in this underlying the text? Okay? At no point have we learned what a simile is. Now, I know what a simile is, but at no point in the class have we learned what a simile is. We have not defined it. We have not even heard the word simile. Simile has not existed in our world. And yet it's asking me what a simile is. Well, it's not asking me, it's asking him. So now I have to explain to him what a simile is, because at no point during any of his assignments was he taught what a simile is. Right? Right. So then that was on Monday. That was Monday's homework. Today, on Friday, we watched a video on what a simile is. Why? Like, I cannot with the e-learning. I just would like very explicit instructions. Then remembering all the logins is enough for me to just pull my hair right out of my head. Right out of my head. Back to the card. You can see over here that I have a sentiment that I've heat embossed. I thought it would be super cute to cut it on like a little diagonal, but I didn't end up liking it. So you'll see at the end we don't end up using it, which is why I did not show it to you. But I wanted to show you guys how I put the card together, which is by using the Tombow Mono multi-glue, which is repositionable, and then playing around with moving where I want my flowers to be before I adhere them permanently. So I'm very, very frustrated with the whole not learning anythings. And then, so we had to define, what was it? So we had alliteration, we had imagery, those both had videos. Then there was another one. Oh, like, hey, we're going to be doing a quick Google Meet on Thursday to share your personal characteristic diaries. And I was like, I've seen nothing about a personal characteristic diary. So I sent her another email and I say, I have no idea what you're referring to. We have done homework all week long and I have not seen anything about this. She was like, oh, it's part of the enrichment section. The enrichment section is optional, people. This, like, her email made it sounded like it was mandatory. It was not mandatory. It was optional. So then I have to send her an email last night again about, it wanted to know, his activity wanted to know, wanted him to underline the elements. Okay, well, I didn't know what an element was in poetry. Okay, I had to look it up. I had to Google it, seriously. And pretty much it's just like how the words come together. So like rhyming is an element, alliteration is an element, all of those things. So I had to Google that. Then, not to mention like the math, we had to do one that was, this is so funny, it's first grade shapes. And he had to put 3 diamonds into a hexagon. Do you know how many pictures of a hexagon I drew before I was like, it's not possible? Then, like 4 questions later, I happened to see a shape a certain way, and I was like, go back to the diamond one, I figured it out. Like, I am grown, and I could not figure out some of these questions. Now, granted, math is not my strong suit. Okay, there's a reason why I don't have a job where math is required of me. But so if you are a parent who is on the struggle bus with this homeschooling, like, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We are finally into May. It's gonna be May. And we're almost done with that. I am just trying to survive life at this point. Like, I feel so bad for this kid because he gets frustrated because he doesn't understand what he's supposed to do. Then I get frustrated because I don't understand what he's supposed to do. Nobody knows what's supposed to be done except for the teacher, and she's just not conveying it very well. Now, again, I'm sure that it has to do with her being on her own struggle bus of trying to figure out e-learning and taking care of her own family. And like, I love teachers and they do not get paid enough money. But I hope to the Lord, oh, please, Jesus, please, like that by the time the school year rolls around in fall, that this is done and we can go back to regular school, because I cannot e-learn. I cannot e-learn anymore. So that's it. This is the whole card. I hope you will check out the blog hop. There's tons of talented people there, and check out those deals as well. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.